Good afternoon and welcome to the Planning Committee here on the 14th of July. And my name is Councillor Gary Marsh. I'm the chairman. To my left is my vice chairman, Councillor Philip Coote. To his left is Zach, the legal officer, Molly. He's the legal officer. To my right is the two principal officers. Steve King is the senior. All the members in front of us are going to be making the determination, and in the two corners are from members' services, and they should be taking the minutes today. Now, before we go any further, can I make sure everybody's mobile phone is switched off? I'm actually saying that. You should be saying that. My vice chairman is going to read out the safety rules.
Good afternoon, everyone. On hearing the evacuation alarm, 1. Leave the building by the nearest marked exit route. 2. Follow the green sign to the assembly point, large staff car park, opposite the entrance to the building. 3. Anyone who cannot use the stairs will be helped by the officers present after the people have left. 4. Do not return to the building until told it is safe to do so by an authorised officer. The whole of the council site is a no smoking area, and mobile phones must be switched to silent or off. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. Right. Item 1 on the agenda is to receive apologies for absence. I have two, Councillor Brown and Councillor Eccleston. Do you know if Councillor Cartwright is joining us? You don't know? Okay. Item 2, to receive declaration of interest from many members in respect to anything on the agenda. Councillor Forbes. Just press the...
Sorry, I'm cock-eyed. Items 6 and 7, I'm also the ward member along with Chris Phillip. But I'm not mentioned on the...
No, but you are now on the district one because it came in today and I saw your name on that one. So no escaping from anything. Councillor Hussain.
Yes, Chairman, I am a member of the Burgess Hill Council Planning Committee.
Now, we haven't got no items in Burgess Hill today, but only if you only have to register an interest if there is a Burgess Hill application, and this is not, none of them today is in Burgess Hill. Item 3 is to confirm the minutes held on the committee held on the 11th and the 12th of May this year. Is everybody happy with the minutes? You agreed? Agreed. Now, I won't actually be signing them because I was actually absent, so I'm going to ask my vice chairman to earn his money today. And when the time comes, can you sign both minutes, please?
Thank you.
All right. Item 4 is to consider any items I agreed to take as urgent business. I haven't. So it brings us to the substantive part of why we're here today, which is item 5. It's DM 220335. It's 24 Wickham Way, Havens Heath. Now, members, the only reason this is here, it would have been a delegated approval, is because the person who's put the application in works within the planning department. Do members wish to see a presentation on this? No? Right, can you then signify in the normal way if you approve it, please, when it comes? Green is for approve, red you don't like, and yellow, we're all 9. So that's approved. Thank you.
Did you have a proposal in a second, Chairman?
No, I didn't have a proposal. I've done it now, so it's too late. Me and you. Right, item 6. This is DM 212509, and item 7 is the identical application, but the second application is for listed building consent. So I've agreed with the officer and on my talk through on Tuesday that we'll only have one presentation. There's no point going through exactly the same presentation for the second item when all you're going to do is see exactly what you heard and said before. So Catherine, this is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. The application is DM 2509 Roffey House, Woolwich Lane, Rowfant. For the provision of a marquee within the walled garden with adjacent car park and modifications to the pathway leading to Rowfant House. I'd like to draw members' attention to the update sheet as there's been additional letter of representation received. It sets out their concerns. Rowfant House, indicated here in red, is a Grade 2 star listed building and is located to the north of Woolwich Lane. The walled garden is located to the north of that and is considered to be curtilage listed. Rowfant House has most recently been used as a wedding venue, hotel and restaurant, but is currently not in use. It's got an extended drive off the northern side here and then continues through past the house. To the east here is an existing building which has previously been used as a retirement home but is no longer in use. And then to the east of that, the small building here is a residential property within the ownership of Rowfant House. The track then continues through woodland over an existing bridge and leads to 2 caravans which are also within the ownership of Rowfant House and are conditioned to be used in association with the house. The public footpath extends firstly through this neighbouring property, Rowfant Lodge, and then across through the driveway and through the property, and then turns to the east here and north up to Hill House. The site is surrounded by trees and there's a large bank of trees in between the walled garden itself and Rowfant House. I'd like to just note the distances from neighbouring properties. There's Hill House here, which is approximately 230 metres from the proposal. To the north there is Home Farm, which is approximately 300 metres. To the south is Rowfant Lodge, which is approximately 275 metres. To the south of that, on the southern side of the road, is Rowfant Cottage and Yew Tree Cottage, which is approximately 330 metres from the proposal. There's one other further property here, which is approximately 305 metres from the proposal. The proposed site plan, so propose an extension of the existing track from this point here through the field across the southern side of the walled garden, which would then turn to the north and to an area of hard standing for car parking. These trees indicated on the plan are the existing, I'm quite sure, would be retained and protected during the works and would screen the car park largely from view. The hard standing comprises of grasscrete for the car park and an area here into the walled garden, and the rest would be a hogging material. There are proposed enhancements to the meadow within and outside the walled garden, and the ecologist has recommended a condition for biodiversity net gain for the proposal as well. So the walled garden structures include full walls across the 2 sides and along the north. This existing opening is already there, and this structure here is a greenhouse, and these are bothy buildings, a part of the northern boundary. So the floor and roof plan shows the function area, toilets and kitchen facilities. The main entrances into the marquee would be along the southern side, and these 2 northern side openings would be fire exits only. The information submitted with the application indicates that the proposed structure of the marquee would include acoustic lining. The council's environmental health officer has commented on the application, and their comments are in full on pages 63 to 67. They note that during the majority of the time, the music for the proposal would be barely audible or even inaudible. But when the background noise decreases between 8 p.m. and 9 p.m, they consider that the music level is likely to be audible at low levels from the gardens, however unlikely audible from the house. They note that there would be some level of disturbance from the proposal, given that it's within the countryside. However, they consider this to be low. They've recommended conditions regarding noise management plan, lighting, construction and hours of delivery, and is also recommended that in association with these conditions, there should be other conditions restricting the hours of use between 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. and the number of events to 30 per calendar year. These plans show the internal elevations as is at present. This shows the full sides, the walled garden and the northern side, as well as the greenhouse structure there as well, and includes the slope of the land within the walled garden. So the corresponding proposed plan and shows that there would be a change to the ground level with a gradual slope to create sort of a plateau area here and a slight increase between the southern wall and the proposal. These are proposed section plans, including the marquee and the walls of the garden, showing the Bothy buildings to the north, and indicates that the marquee wouldn't be visible above this, but would be visible from the roof form from the two sides, and would be visible from the southern side. Historic England have been consulted and raised no objection to the proposal, and the Conservation Officer notes the light structure and that the proposal be set away from Roffey House itself, with the gradual slope and proposed wildflower planting within the walled garden, which would retain the internal character of the structure, and the proposal would also allow repairs and continued upkeep of the walled garden and structures. The officer has also recommended structural surveys and detailed repairs and landscaping conditions. Turn to the photos. I'll go through each one to show where they are. I've also included the location plan as well. So the first one is taken from the entrance here, the top left-hand one. The right-hand one is further along, straight in front of Roffey House, the road continuing through the arch. The road then continues round the back of the building to the east, and that is where this photo is taken, about to cross the bridge through the woodland and to the north. The middle top photo here is taken from approximately here. This shows the point where the footpath then turns to the right. The road, the track continues round to the left here, to the caravans, and the proposal would continue north here and then through the field. And this plan shows the caravans here, the first one. The photos to the left-hand side, the top one is taken from approximately here to the southern side of the walled garden, facing back across the field. And the one underneath is taken from the opposite side, approximately here, looking back to the walled garden and the field. The top photo here is taken next to the walled garden again, facing inwards. You can see the northern boundary, the northern wall here, and the southern wall finishes just behind this bush here, and the southern pillar just behind here. The next photo adjacent to it is taken within, and you can see there the wooden structure of the existing greenhouse. The bottom photo is taken just below the walled garden, facing to the west, where the track would then continue round the corner. This next photo here is taken in the corner here, just as it continues north, approximately here through the trees. And the next two photos taken from the same position, approximately here, facing down where the car park will be and showing the existing trees around it. And this photo is here taken from the opposite direction of the Bothy buildings, approximately here. The proposal is considered to constitute small-scale economic development in the countryside. We protect the rural character of the area, the setting of the listed building and the Kirchlich listed walled garden would not cause significant harm to the amenities of neighbouring properties and is recommended for approval subject to conditions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Catherine. I couldn't allow you to interrupt because you're allowed your 2 minutes, but we can't ask questions of the officers, okay? Though it's held in public, It's only members are allowed to ask questions of the officers. You couldn't hear? Oh, right. Is the speakers working?
The speakers are working, I think the microphone needs to be centred, but it's audible.
Okay. Is it the air conditioning unit?
Well, there's a trade-off between that and the sound.
Okay, I think we'll do the sound off and we'll keep this air conditioning unit on despite with the heat outside. Right, we have 3 speakers, actually we have 4 speakers. I'm going to call the first speaker up. It's Dr. James Thring. If you can come to this chair here. The officer will explain how the microphone works, but what will happen is when you start speaking, the legal officer will switch on the traffic light system we have here. You'll have green light for a minute and a half, and after a minute and a half, the light will change to amber, and that means you've got 30 seconds left. And when it goes to red, I would like you to conclude in 1 sentence, okay? You don't have to touch anything, just talk into it and away it goes. Not yet. Yes, now we
Can you
can.
hear me now?
Yes.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is an objection on behalf of the residents of Roffey, about 100 herodiciments, to the unlimited noise from the weddings proposed to be held in the walled garden under the guise of a temporary marquee. This is a quiet part of the countryside, and holding weddings in the garden will generate unacceptable levels of noise for unspecified hours in the day and into the night, possibly all week. These will have to go on for years to generate the scale of income, which is 1 million in the first year to pay off, and that's just to pay off the debts, and 1.3 million in year 2, and 1.6 million in year 3. No profit is expected in year 1 to help pay for the remedial work in Roffey House itself, 200,000 in year 2, and 413,000 in year 3. We understand this will be hypothecated for restoring Roffey House and turning it into a wedding reception itself, plus accommodation, but we suspect the marquee parties will have to continue because that income won't be sufficient. Now, they say that the marquee is insulated, but it's only the sides that are insulated. The roof has no insulation in it, as far as I can see. So in any case, even if it was, there would be leakage from these loudspeakers outside or even through the vents and doors. The acoustics report says that only 75 decibels will be heard at Hill House, which is only 175 metres away. That's bad enough. But did they simulate a party? We don't know. And then there are houses to the south, as you've just seen, and they're a lot closer.
Can you finish in 1 sentence, please, Mr. Doctor?
Okay. Well, we regretfully conclude that this application must be refused on those grounds and another set of grounds which you'll hear from my colleague. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm going to call the next speaker, Jonathan Locker-Lampson. No, we'll put you in, we can take the chair there if you wish to. No, no worry. Take your time, we're not in a hurry. tell me something.
Just wait a second. That's all right. Ready?
Okay, your 2 minutes starts when you start talking.
Thank you. Good evening. Sorry to mess about.
That's all right, don't worry.
Doing my best. I used to own Roffey House, and it was in my family for over 150 years. The walled area was a kitchen garden, and as such produced fruit, vegetables and flowers for the entire estate. This surrounding wall is Grade 2 listed, of course. The skill of its construction is extremely rare and unique. The sticker marquee in the middle of this structure is thoughtless and environmentally horrendous. This is the desecration of a masterpiece. But against all that, we've been asked by the government to grow green, not to put gain and greed first. Regarding the road that leads to the kitchen garden, as indicated on the submitted plans, there is not a road in situ, nor ever has been. There is no planning approval for the road. All right, so the acoustic system that is proposed, due to the unacceptable noise levels, which it has been confirmed will be, but no guarantee that this will prevent the problem. I note that the planning department has recommended you vote for permission. What you have just heard against permission, I hope, will transport you to the sensible conclusion. Only way to vote is no. No permission. I live in Roffey House by the entrance. Don't live in Roffey House. I live in Roffey Lodge, the house by the entrance to Roffey House. On wedding days and the days before and after, I doubt I'll be able to get out. Up to 1,000 guests equals at least 500 cars, plus coaches, service vehicles to and from the narrow country lane. To summarise, there is no existing road access. There is an ancient historic wall. The acoustic system will not necessarily prevent noise pollution. If this application goes through, it really will be a major desecration of a wonderful part of old England.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Again, we're in no hurry, so just take your time. Okay. Can I call the next speaker? This is Mr. Aaron Breeden, and he's speaking on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you. Good afternoon, councillors. My name is Aaron Breeden from Clear Architects. This application is for the installation of a marquee within the existing walls of the derelict walled garden at Roffey House. The proposal will enable the greater use of the grounds at Roffey House to better support the property. Roffey House in recent times has undergone administration twice, leading to its sale by the administrators. It now has new owners with experience of heritage properties. For many years, the property has been left in poor condition due to insufficient funds through the stewardship of previous owners, leading to much decay. We find ourselves at a turning point where more use of the property needs to be made to enable sufficient monies to come through to enable an operating business with monies to maintain the property. Properties such as Roffey House are expensive to maintain and repair. The proposed marquee would be used for up to 30 functions each year, with a sophisticated sound attenuation system designed by a marquee acoustic specialist, which has been agreed with environmental health and associated conditions. The marquee has been designed to have a minimal appearance on the grounds of the listed building and for it to maintain a secondary position non-competing with Roffey House itself. We have worked tirelessly with the Council's Conservation Officer, Transport Planning Officers, Environmental Health, Trees and Landscape Officer to enable the proposal to come forwards in a well-planned manner. The Planning Officer and her senior managers have found the proposal to be acceptable in principle, appropriate in character and scale, protects the setting of the listed building, would not cause undue disturbance to the amenities of neighbouring properties, which are set some distance from the proposal, acceptable on high-rise terms and landscape improved. The proposal is in accordance with the local plan and the NPPF. The proposal represents an intelligent use of the grounds to safeguard the future of Roffey House. We look forward to your support. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's about 2 minutes-ish. We didn't touch the thing on, so there's no problems. Right, now we actually have a fourth speaker. Now, as Councillor Gibson isn't the ward councillor, but his ward is adjacent, which would affect, traffic flows, I've allowed Councillor Gibson to speak, but the rules in this one are, as you are not the ward councillor, you will get the 2 minutes as you would if you were just an ordinary member of the public.
Thank you, Chairman. I won't take 2 minutes, and thank you very much for allowing me to speak to the committee, because I just wanted to talk briefly about the wider context of the site access, which hasn't been mentioned in the presentation. I find the West Sussex Highways report a little lacking. It describes the Woolwich Lane as lightly trafficked. It is in fact a rat run and should be viewed as such. The arithmetic for the number of journeys which is generated, I find also I'm unhappy with, given that at the moment that the site isn't in use. So whatever is generated will be additional in terms of numbers. I'd also just like to remind members of two issues with Woolwich Lane. It is cut by the Worth Way, by the entry to Colas. So the Worth Way has come into significantly greater use than previously, and the most severely congested junction in the DPD is at the Turners Hill Road end in my district, and there was a fatality there within the past 2 years. Thank you, Chairman. I've beaten the red light.
Okay, thank you. All right, members, if you wish to speak, can you press the right-hand buttons, and I will call you as they appear on my screen. So if any member wishes to speak, but before we do that, I'm going to ask the two ward members if they wish to speak. So, Councillor Forbes.
Thank you, Chairman. I've got a couple of things. Looking at the Appendix 6, I think that the environmental officers set conditions that are very good. It covers, I won't read them all out because it's about 5 paragraphs, but it is very good. I would point out, Chairman, that even if this is granted, I believe that they would still have to apply for a licence for music, dancing, alcohol, etc. And there'd be no guarantee that they'll get that. So whatever happens here today does not cover actually what the noise is going to come from. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Phillips.
Thank you, Chairman. I point out to the Speaker that the financial considerations is not a matter for us to consider whether it's profitable or not, and will eventually finance the house, is not something that we will consider today, although personally I hope it does. And one question I would ask, Chairman, is if it would be appropriate that if eventually the house came back into use as a wedding venue, whether the planning, if we do agree to this, should be ceased for the marquee if the main house was brought back into use for a wedding venue, rather than have two wedding venues there. potentially 2 wedding venues there. A gentleman said that, you know, there's unrestrained sound. Now, my understanding is that it's 30 events, maximum of 30 events. The events will finish at 2300. There would obviously be an element of noise for traffic leaving, probably up to about midnight, I would suggest. And I would ask that when the noise management plan was put in place, that consideration was given to keeping the noise levels down to a reasonable level, because having experienced this weekend just gone, being kept awake till 4 o'clock in the morning on a campsite by Tom Cruise's 60th birthday bash, it can be very extremely annoying.
Drop that into the conversation, why don't you?
I don't like the man personally, but it was his 60th birthday bash, I gather. One other question I'd like to ask the officer was whether the bridge that over the stream going through the woods has been checked as to whether that is actually strong enough to take the volume of traffic, and B, the heavier traffic which would go through now, providing goods and services to the wedding venue.
Is that it?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, before I ask the officer to answer that question, I'm just going to get Mr. King to answer probably the 2 questions, the one we discussed, and about the second application, should it possibly come in. We can only deal with what we've got in front of us.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just to make the point that in terms of traffic movements to and from the site, although the site at the moment is not in use, as members who visited the site will have seen, it obviously does have a lawful use that could be resurrected at any time. So we're not starting, when you're looking at traffic movements, from a base of nothing. You've got to look at what the lawful use is, what that could be, and then compare with what's proposed. In terms of noise, I think there's a slight overlap between planning and environmental health, in that planning would enforce planning conditions that are imposed. So we'll have a noise management plan that we will deal with and approve if we're happy with it, in consultation with environmental health. And then if there are breaches of that noise management plan, then that can be enforced under the planning regime. If there is a statutory nuisance taking place on the site, that would be dealt with by our colleagues in the environmental health team. So that's how the overlap works between the 2 departments in terms of noise.
Is that it? Thank you. Catherine, can you just answer the question whether the bridge, has there been any sort of, examination or survey of the bridge?
There's been no survey, and the bridge is not part of the proposal. Having been there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with the bridge per se, and it is already in use as the access over to the caravans already.
Mr. King?
And just to follow on from that, really, ultimately that's an issue for the applicants. That's not something for the planning committee. It's for the applicants to make sure that structurally the bridge is sound for the purpose they want to put it to.
Okay, thank you. My Vice Chairman, Councillor Cook.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I agree with Councillor Forbes and Councillor Phillips, so I won't repeat what they've said. I've spent many hours in Roffey House. It's a lovely old house, and it's a shame that it closed. Well, it's a shame that it stopped being a private residence, but unfortunately that ceased some years ago. The concern is, of course, that if we don't allow some form of earning a living there, the house will fall into disrepair, and that would be a great shame. I would also agree with Councillor Gibson that road is Well, I suppose it's traffic control because it's quite thin, so narrow, so people can't drive quickly. And in fact, lorries are not supposed to come out of the factory estate and turn right. There is a clear sign to tell them to turn left, but quite often they don't. However, West Sussex County Council Highways have given us no grounds to refuse it, so therefore I think with all the restrictions that are in the planning application, I think it should go ahead, Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do know this road very well, and I sort of semi-agree with Councillor Gibson in his it is a notorious rat run, but it's normally a notorious rat run Monday to Friday, and I would assume that weddings are going to take place at the weekend, so I don't think that's much of an issue. Councillor Sweatman.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be brief because a lot of things I was going to say have actually been said, and I don't like to repeat them, but basically I've been to a few functions at this wonderful 15th century building, and it's nice to see that someone is actually going to come along and try and bring that back into use. I think this application is covered by some very, very good conditions. The noise condition 6 is very good. It covers just about everything. And just to note, what the case officer said, the nearest property is 230 metres away. So that is quite some distance. And as regards noise, that is going to be monitored on a regular basis and reviewed annually. So I think there's a lot of good things in that one. There's also the conservation officer has mentioned about the walled garden, and there's a condition in that which is condition, oh, I've lost it now, but there's a condition in there that, condition 4, that structural surveying details of repairs and to make sure the wall is stable before anything, the marquees is put there. So they will have to make sure that's up to scratch before any work continues there. As usual, you've got the lighting, EV charging points there, that usual sort of thing, so they're complying with quite a lot of things. And don't forget, this also creates jobs in the rural economy, so I think that's an important issue to look at. So I'll leave it there, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sweatman. I should have actually thanked Councillor Forbes, because if he didn't agree with the noise management, I think nobody in this council would have a chance, because being his previous job. Councillor Pulfer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The comments which the officers have made, in fact, on page 33, 37, 41, noise in particular, and 62, I'm just sceptical about including the noise, because most of these, I'm going to say edifices, because if this, effectively, this is a small house being put in the middle of the countryside, and the doors to, there aren't doors to a marquee, it's in and out, and the noise will come out of that. And so that's going to come back to the complaints to the environmental officers to come down and sort it out, and it'll be too much, too little. And that's not a criticism on the officers, it's just that they won't be able to get there on a Saturday that easily. I'm concerned that there are so many matters unresolved in the reports, and I think that those ought to have been resolved before planning application is, because we all know the arguments which then go on afterwards, where too much capitulation goes on to get it through. Houses being 250 yards away or metres, it matters not which. I'm 5 miles away from the Bluebell Railway, and I still hear it when the wind is in the right direction. And so, Mr. Chairman, I shall be voting against this application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think what members must realise that it is a quiet part of the world apart from the aeroplanes flying by. There is going to be some noise, and we've just got to accept the fact there will be some noise. Councillor de Bell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with what Councillor Coote said. that it would be, I understand that this house is moving towards derelict, is that what we're saying? And I would like to ask the officer, as Councillor Swetman alluded to, how far away are the nearest properties? Because obviously noise is a consideration, but I think that in line with what the dear speaker was saying, if this results in a business there, which will see Rofant House, restored, then I think it could only be good. So how far away are the nearest accommodations, please?
230, I
I
think.
couldn't find it on there.
Is it 230 yards?
And also, is it derelict? It's not derelict?
It's not derelict, the house. It does need work, but the works required aren't necessarily set out in accord with this application. So any works to the house, that can't be weighed in benefit of this particular application, but the benefit of the restoration of the walled garden can be taken into consideration in this application.
I think Councillor Phillips asked the question, if in years to come that they're successful and they do bring Rofant House back into life, well, they've already got extant planning permission, haven't they, at Rofant House? Mr. King, have they got extant planning permission to hold venues there in Rofant House? And the question was, do we have two venues there, you know, one in the house and one in the walled garden? That's not what we can deal with tonight, but I think it's a valid question, but I don't think it's part of this application.
Yeah. So I'm just checking.
You check it. Well, in the meantime, I've got a question myself. When you put up the plan where the marquee was going and you did a sort of side on, you said it's going to create a plateau. So the question I would ask is all the spoil being moved to create a horizontal platform for the marquee, is it all going to remain on site? So they're going to take it away and build up the other side of it, or do they plan, do you know, if they're going to take it off site? Because that might be a little bit, we don't seem to have that answer.
No information has been provided regarding that, but it's quite a small change and probably a small amount of earth change, so I would assume that they'd use what they already have.
It would make sense.
On site, yeah.
You just
Surely if they're going to change the contours of the land, they need planning permission for that. So
no, they can do that in the application. Yeah. Condition 10. Can we just go to condition 10? It's on page 53. Because the existing use is Rofant House. Okay, Catherine, could you answer the question?
Yeah, so just in terms of the use, there is condition 10 that the proposal should be used in association with the existing use of Rofant House, so not necessarily two separate businesses. The existing lawful use has been done over time, so there's no conditions on it at all, and they could bring it back into use whenever they wish to.
I think you were worried that they would potentially have two sites, two wedding venues on the same, basically adjacent to each other. I think we can't really legislate about that today, but you've just heard that what the officer said, it could. But I'm sure that the applicant's representative here has taken that on board as well. So there be no more further questions. Can I ask members to vote in could you just put up that's what I was talking about, that site there. You can see where the marquee is. You see it's horizontal. And there is a gradual. I assume they're just going to take it from one and build up the other side of it. Yeah, Councillor Forbes.
But Councillor Phillips was saying about having two venues for the weddings, unless things have changed, don't they have to apply to
Licenses.
have a wedding, so that that can be refused at the time?
Yeah, it could do.
And can I just make a point where it says overall noise levels from amplified music, which they've not got yet, from the marquee should not exceed the background noise level at the nearest noise sensitive, unless things are changed, that could be set from the nearest property. You go into the nearest property and set the thing so if you can't hear it, then that's fine and it's set at that level. So unless things are changed, I think the noise conditions cover everything, I think.
Okay, thank you. Right, the recommendation is set out on page 12. It is recommended that planning permission be approved, subject to conditions outlined in Appendix A. Can I ask members to make a vote, please? Do you want to read it out, Zach?
Yes, Chairman, that's 7 in favour, 1 against and 1 abstention.
So that is approved. Right, we're going to move now to item 7, which is the listed building consent. As I outlined at the beginning, we won't have another presentation because you're just going to hear exactly the same. But we do have a speaker. Mr. Aaron Breeden, would you like to speak, or is it up to you?
I don't think it's necessary, thank you.
Okay, then. Well, the officer's recommendation is for it to be approved. It's just listed building consent, and if our listed building officer is happy with it. So can we go to the vote on that one again? It's outlined on page 74. It is recommended that listed building consent be approved, subject to conditions outlined in Appendix A. Could you vote again, please? Alex? Zach, could you?
That's 8 in favour and 1 against. That's approved.
That is approved. Thank you very much, gentlemen. You can stay if you wish to, but please leave if you want to. If any member, no, we've only been here 50 minutes. So what are you going to say about this guy? You said he's lived there for, Thank you. We're now moving to item 8, which is recommended for refusal. It's DM 220922, 17 Brook Lane, Linfield, and this is yours, Caroline.
The application seeks planning permission for first floor, front and rear extensions at 17 Brook Lane in Linfield. The application...
Hang on a second. Could you bring the speaker a little bit closer? I think we're going where we had last time. They couldn't really hear what you're saying. No, not you, but Catherine.
Okay, speak up. Okay. So, the application relates to 17 Brook Lane, a detached chalet bungalow that is situated on the southern side of the highway. Brook Lane is situated to the east of Portsmouth Lane. It has houses on either side of the road and a turning at the western end of the road. It's situated within the built-up area of Linfield. Neighbouring dwellings are situated to the south, east and west of the site, whilst the highway is to the north. The dwelling is set back from the road by a front garden and has an area of hard standing as well. It also has a garden to the rear. The block plan has the proposed works highlighted in red. To the front of the dwelling, it is proposed to increase the eaves and ridge height of an existing 1.5-storey front projection. To the rear, it is proposed to lift the eaves of the main dwelling in order to create a full first floor across the rear elevation. As you can see from the block plan, the dwelling is set away from neighbours to either side, as well as associated windows. Due to this spacing, and as the footprint of the dwelling would not be increased, set out in the officer report, it is considered that the proposal would not cause significant harm to the amenity of these neighbours. The next slide shows the floor plans, and the works are to take place to the first floor. To the front, the increase in roof height would allow an existing storage area to become a bedroom, whilst to the rear, 2 existing bedrooms to be allowed, one of which would gain an ensuite, and a further bedroom is to be created in this space here. This slide shows the existing and proposed front elevations. As you can see, the proposal would increase the eaves from where they currently are, as well as the ridge, and would change the window design as well. The dwelling is considered to be a characterful chalet bungalow that is of a simple design and has remained relatively unaltered. It therefore contains the features of a chalet bungalow, such as low eaves height and first floor accommodation gained through dormer windows. These are considered to be characteristics of the dwelling. In terms of design, it should be noted that further to the design policies within the district plan, Mid-Sussex District Council also has a supplementary planning document, the Design Guide, which is a material consideration for applications and is there to inform good design. In terms of extensions, it recommends that they should respond to the design of the dwelling, to be well integrated in terms of scale, form and massing, and allow the original building to remain the dominant element of the property. It is considered that the increase in roof heights, as shown here, and the detailed design would not be in keeping with the character or proportions of the existing dwelling. It is also considered that the projection would appear as a more dominant feature.
You speak up a little bit louder,
These are the existing and proposed rear elevations. Again, you can see the existing property has low eaves and 2 small dormer windows to the rear. The proposal was lift the eaves of the house significantly in order to create the first floor accommodation. Due to this change, the works are considered to be contrary to the character of the existing chalet bungalow, as it would result in a fully expressed 2-storey rear elevation being created. These are the existing and proposed side elevations. Again, the works to the rear can be seen as proposed here.
You're looking at the screen. You need to talk into the microphone.
I'll change my angle. So here you can see, for example, on the west elevation, the existing roof line here, and this would be flattened out to create the space with the increase in ridge and, the continuation of the ridge line and the eaves here. And to the front of the property, you can see where the existing front projection is and the increase in ridge height that would occur in both the west and east elevations. This slide shows the existing and proposed roof plan. In order to create the rear extension, an expanse of flat roof would need to be created in order to create the volume. This is not considered to form part of subservient addition. For the top two photographs on this slide show the front and rear of the application property, and again show the characteristics that were earlier described, and that the property frontage is visible within the street scene. As such, the works at the front of the property will be visible within the street scene as well. Below, the pictures show the neighbouring properties. To the left is number 15, which is to the east, which is also a chalet bungalow. To the right is number 19, to the west, which is a two-storey dwelling. This slide shows the varying properties that are located around the application site. They are all set back within their plots, however, or of a traditional form, have traditional materials and are well spaced. These last photographs illustrate, again, that the houses are set back and are well spaced, and it's considered that this spacing would allow views to the side of the application property, and therefore the works to the rear would also be visible in the street scene. For example, this is the application property from the west. You can see here the existing front projection, which would be increased to the top of the ridge here, and then the rear extension would project from this top ridge line, as well as add to the eaves from the high eaves from here. This view from the east shows, again, the ridge line from where the extension would extend to the rear, and you would also see the higher eaves again. So overall, it is concluded that the design of the proposed development would be harmful in terms of the impact of the existing property and the street scene, and the recommendation, therefore, before you is for refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Caroline. We do have two speakers speaking for himself. The owner, James Wren. You come to this, Terry will explain what buttons you've got to press. Right, once you start speaking, you will have 2 minutes. The green light will come on over here, operated by the officer. After 90 seconds, it will turn to amber. After that 30 seconds, it will turn to red, and then I'll ask you to conclude in one sentence.
Thank you.
The time starts when you start speaking.
Thank you for taking the time to review our application to extend our home to make the living space more suitable for our growing family. The extension will allow a more practical use of the space, enabling us to have full height furniture and a shower upstairs, and accommodate working from home arrangements following the COVID-19 pandemic. Our home is situated on a private cul-de-sac on the edge of Linfield. We have had no objections to our proposal from any of our neighbours or Linfield Parish Council. As it is not a through road, the impact to the wider community outside of our neighbours is practically non-existent. Our road is made up of bespoke homes with differing styles and characteristics. Many of these have had large extensions. I believe this makes it hard to argue that our proposed changes are not in keeping with the surroundings and will be harmful to the aesthetics of the road. The design does not extend beyond the existing footprint or exceed the original height in order to maintain the scale of the property. The proposed extension to the front of our home is to a pre-existing projection and raise the roof in line with the rest of the building. This would be very similar to our neighbours opposite us, who have a much larger, more dominant structure. Our proposal is for something smaller, more sympathetic, which integrates well with the existing building, keeping the existing design. The planned extension to the rear of our home is obscured from the road as well as to the rear of the property. Matching materials will be used to keep it in line with its suburban appearance, and some of the existing features will be maintained. For example, the pitch to the side of the roof is extended through to the rear. We believe it's a more elegant design than the alternatives that would be available under permitted development, such as a large rear dormer, which would not integrate as well into the building as our proposal. I hope you can appreciate that our design does not negatively affect the property or our neighbours or the street scene. I hope you'll be able to support our application and grant planning permission to our home. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wren. I'm going to call the local ward councillor, Councillor Andrew Lee. He has been briefed that he can speak. Don't try our patience by speaking forever, but he is not subject to any time.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, committee. For those who don't know me, good afternoon. My name is Andrew Lee, and I'm very briefly speaking as the local ward councillor of this application, and I won't take more than 45 minutes. I'm particularly pleased to see this application come before this committee, as it is precisely the type that, including as it does both subjective judgments and planning issues, it is best decided in open committee. With regard to those planning matters, and as you know, I'm not a planning committee member myself, it seems to me that whether or not this application breaches a design guide, which is after all a guide, is exactly the sort of decision that should be made by this committee. The officer's executive summary on page 96 is admirably clear and provides a helpful framework for this discussion. You may well, however, disagree with their assessment, and in that regard, I have some questions you might like to consider. 1. Does the scale, form and design of the proposed extension really not create, to use the language of the report, subordinate or proportionate additions to the dwelling? 2. Would it really undermine rather than enhance the character of the existing building? 3. Would it actually detract from the street scene of this eclectic road? And 4. If this application did not fit in with the character of this road, would not the parish council, neighbours, and even the rarely taciturn Linfield Preservation Society not have objected or made representations? So, if you don't agree with the officer's assessment of the subjective factors, then this application does in fact comply with the policies and design guide principles, and granting permission would be appropriate. In fact, even if you are not sure of those assessments, then permission is appropriate because of the presumption in favour of development. Only if you are sure of the officer's assessment would it be appropriate to refuse permission. Thank you for your time. I look forward to hearing your discussion.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Yes, it was a threat, but didn't carry it out for 45 minutes. Right, members, you were lobbied by the owner, and I think it's his wife. And I did say to members, if you were to go down, please remember your code of conduct training and don't actually offer any opinion. So hopefully people did go down and visited this site, because I think it's important that you do visit this site. So, members, who wishes to speak? Councillor de Bow. You were very quick.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Having looked at this very carefully, I tend to agree with the owner and indeed with our good Councillor Lee, that this is one of those situations where, with the greatest of respect to Caroline and the team, this is not one for just simply the rules. This is not a huge development. None of the neighbours objected to it. The parish council are quite happy with it. I believe it just fits into that particular bracket where the decision should be made by the committee, and it will have my support going forward. As I say, with the greatest respect to Caroline and the team for the decisions that they've come to on simply planning rules per se, but I think this is one that deserves to go through. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Councillor de Bell. I actually found this one a very difficult one. I always say you should go and visit every site, and I like to think everybody does. I did just visit it once or twice. I actually went down 3 times because I still couldn't work out. Anyway, I should leave it at that. Councillor Pulfer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did have a drive-by, and my conclusion is that the adjacent houses may or may not meet a design requirement. Design is in the eyes of the beholder, and so there could be made comment on other housing. I support both the owner and Councillor Lee in suggesting that this is going to be quite in order to pass, because all the other houses are of an older housing stock, and I don't believe that we can have retroactive design merits, so I would suggest that we support the application.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pulfer. Councillor Coote.
Thank you, Chairman. I did go and see it yesterday with Councillor Webb. I've read the report, and I think it's a good report from the officer. However, this is why this committee exists, because we are the final arbiters in cases like this. And quite honestly, I cannot see a problem with it. I only have one comment to make, and that is I don't like flat roofs in the middle of houses, because Apart from the fact you can't see it, but from a practical point of view, they usually get blocked with leaves, and getting up there is quite a difficult job, and they have various problems. But that said, I would vote for it, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Coote. Well, I'll have my two penneth worth now. As I said, I went down 3 times to have a look at this site, and I did walk up and down the road, though I didn't knock on anybody's door, because I don't want to put myself in any position, so I didn't knock on anybody's door. I just had a look at what I could see around, and you know me, I will support the officers, but I think in this case, it is that grey area. Does it horrendously upset the street scene? No. Does it really upset the balance? I could have been looking at my own house there when you put that up. I was thinking, well, my house looks a bit like that. You know, flat at the back and with chalet at the front, and with that built at the beginning, you know, over one of the windows there. Reluctantly, I will go against the officer's recommendation for this one. It is, you could say, as Councillor Lee and his thing about the design guide. The design guide we all worked very hard on to get it, but again, that's not a tablet in stone. That is a pragmatic interpretation of what we see in front of us. And it's not that we're asking for a huge block of flats, it's just a modest, and so I shall be supporting it to be allowed to proceed. But I will, in this case, I will need some proposers and seconders. So can I have a proposer if you wish to vote against and I need a seconder, Councillor Forbes. The proposal will be, as Councillor Lee read it out, it does not create, the extension is subordinate, is proportionate to the dwelling and doesn't undermine the character of the existing building and doesn't actually harm the street scene. So with that in mind, we're going to vote for to overturn the officer's recommendation. So all those members, you wish to, if you agree with the officer's recommendations, if you don't agree, vote with the officer, to refuse it. Yes, sorry.
I'm not clear what we're voting.
We're voting to not go with the recommendation, but to approve the recommendation, approve it to proceed. Approve the application. Zach, can you look? I think I've got 9.
Yes, that's 8 in favour of the updated motion and 1 against.
Okay, thank you. Now, could we, Mr. King, that is approved as opposed to refused. Could we make sure all the normal conditions are set out? Caroline, could you do that and inform Mr. Wren all the conditions that he has to adhere to and all the rest of it? Thank you very much. That application has been approved, not refused. Right, we're now going to item 9, questions pursuant to Council Rule Procedure 10.2, due notice which has been given. I have none, so therefore I will close the meeting at 5:10. Thank you very much. Enjoy the summer until we see you again in a month's time.